Okay, well, our one of our bigger topics actually, this is a great jumping off point, because one of our bigger topics was on display in the Mavericks and Warriors game, and it just seems like it's been on display and in our face so much more this season, and in particular the last couple weeks between Fred Van Vliet and his fight with Ben Taylor, the referee, and then we hear through friend of the program Tom Haberstroh he's been sort of soft demoted. And then we have this incident in the Mavs Warriors game at the end of the third quarter where the Mavericks think it's their ball, but they're mistaken. And they're wrong about that, by the way. I mean, by the time you hear this on Friday, I'm sure that we'll have the Zapruder film of the entire incident out there. But it seems to me like that was a communication error for the team, for the refs. Like, we got to clean this stuff up. But there's just been an overwhelming amount of missed calls, bad calls. Kawhi Leonard got a technical for clapping.
No. Terrence Mann got that ref called 3 technicals in 30 seconds. That is the highest tech per minute ratio we've had in the league. I mean, that was just a and somebody got ejected. That was wild.
Got to go back to when Steve Javie ejected a bunch of people and the mascot in the span of about 45 seconds. That's probably close to 20 years ago now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they were filming like a remake of Forget Paris or something, but either way, no one has ever in history
got that reference.
Paid a dime to watch a referee at a basketball game. And so, look, I'm anti-replay. I'm anti-coach's challenge. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd do call your own, because at least then I think these guys would have some pride and they wouldn't flop so much. But the truth is, you can't have
come
that.
on.
Oh, no.
Stop it.
There's no way. There's no way.
With the call your own.
Yeah, there's no. Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm kidding, but there's no way they wouldn't have a little bit more pride. But the truth is, like, the refereeing is an issue, and the calls there have been a lot of missed and bad calls to the point where it's hard to even defend sometimes, guys. And I mean, I'm not sure what the league can do. Now, I know that there are proposals to add a 4th ref. That certainly would help. But why isn't there a video ref for every game that's able to review everything in real time? We can see the replay instantly. Mo can clip while a game is going live and have it on Twitter in 10 seconds. Seems very easy to me.
I think you're asking exactly the wrong question.
Perfect.
And here's why. It's like the notion that we'll get all these calls right, blah, blah, blah. I think the problem is really more that, and this is ironically enough, an effort that's been driven largely by complaints from Mark Cuban, is that they're trying to get some like objective reffing standard why which calls are either right or wrong. And so there's this one size fits all rubric against which everything is measured. And what's happened is, the ref isn't there to dole out punishment. The ref is there to make the game go smoothly. Like, the visceral reaction Mo and I had to call your own is we've all played in that game where some motherfucker is just like foul, 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 foul. Some of them might even be assistant coaches who are with teams in the Eastern Conference now.
Name names, Seth. If you're gonna do it, name names.
Ben Sullivan, I love you, but he calls bad fouls and pick up. But instead of 30 years ago, the refs had the ability to have rapport and manage the game so that the game flowed, and it's like, all right, that's too much. Stop, back off. We can talk about it, but that's enough. And instead, it's a very robotic. Black and white line, black and white. And I don't think that works, because all that does is lead to situations where I got screwed. I'm going to complain more, blah, blah, blah. And it just leads to a raising of tension. And I have a hard time actually blaming the refs, because they are not permitted to use the tools that could diffuse, because it's just like, nope, that's my call. I can't talk to you. And that, of course, that's not going to work. Of course, in the moment of heightened competition, that's going to like piss someone off more. So while I hear what you're saying, I think that it's going down that path of expecting precision has made perfect the enemy of good.
And I will agree with that too. I would rather just say roll the ball out, let the calls fall how they may, and then keep it moving. But we live in a video world.
But it's not even that though. I think one, it's some of these things that are automatic technicals just tend to take away what Seth is saying in terms of like, let's conversate and figure these things out. And how do we get this going through it? But I think the concept of every game is going to be officiated the same way is incredibly stupid. I think the idea that that's going to happen is 3 different human beings each time. So collectively, it's going to be different. All you want is consistency. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you're going to be bad, be consistently bad on both ends, or be good on both
Yeah,
ends,
that's
or
it.
whatever. You just want the consistency of it. And I think that's kind of what the players want. But also, the players need to chill the fuck out. And I'm dead. This is getting really out of hand over the past 5 years of the nonstop complaining and griping when you don't get a call, the throwing your hands up. And, how many times have we made the joke of a dude calling for a review when it was like, no, that's clearly a foul. Like, and this is something that they have to deal with regularly as the officials. And I'm not trying to defend officials in general because they get a lot wrong in that sense. But the response that they get from the players, this is actually a relationship problem. It's a relationship issue between the players and the officials. And we saw it in the Fred VanVleet going off and ready to go. We saw it in Luka Doncic after he felt like he
With
got
the
a
money
foul
sign.
call and throwing the money sign to think it's gambling. And by the way, should have probably gotten a tech for that. In that instance, we saw it with Scotty Barnes chirping with Scott Foster and things like that. Like there's a lot of different things. The relationship issue amongst the officials and the players is fractured and it needs to be fixed. And it goes back to more to what Seth was saying of like refs being able to hear what the guys are saying to them and all of that. Like they almost need to have more work in how to defuse confrontations than anything else in that stuff. But also some of this is on the players because the griping is way out of hand. And it's
Luka has gotten to the point where it is he's frustrating to watch as a player sometimes anyway.
But I don't even want to pick on Luka. That's the easy one.
Yeah.
We've seen so every player do it, and we've seen it in every game all the time across the board. And it's something where it's like this is getting a little bit wild. And to be honest, this isn't new. Literally had this problem when I was with the Clippers with Blake and CP. Same issue. It's along those lines. It's just been building up so incredibly so much to the point where it's like we're out of control with what we have. And then it's just it's going through this. And I'm gonna be honest here, Mavs fans, y'all need to chill out because first off, the ref's not the one that screwed that up.
Yeah, well, that's true.
The referee called it originally Golden State ball, and then you guys just messed up from everything. And then now on but I'll say this is where you should be mad because that shouldn't have been your complaint. Your complaint should have been Kevon Looney throwing down Luka Doncic to get that rebound before it went out of bounds. That's a whole different story. But we can, but just that sense of like, there's not going to be a perfect call, and a lot of times it tends to even out.
To put a point on this, first of all, we talked about March Madness. I have a hard time going after NBA refs after watching 32.
Well, you got to understand, college basketball refs actually don't like basketball, so that's why they call the game that way. They love charges. They're just out there for that.
But the other thing, and the stuff we're talking about, this is not limited to the NBA. It's not even limited to professional sports. I mean, how often do we see stories about the struggles of getting like referees for youth tournaments? Because who would want to do it? Because some coach dad is gonna run down to out of the stands and motherfuck you for missing a call. Like it
doesn't even have to be some coach dad. Mo, did you ever ref practice?
I don't want to go down that road again.
It's the worst.
You guys this is the second time this has come up this week in my life, and you guys are bringing back flashbacks.
It is the most thankless job you can have. And what's amazing is we have decided that to do things formally, like play sports formally, you need these guys out there. But I as a head coach ref practice and had a player MF me in the game. And by the way, you just let it fly because it's, hey man, this is how it is when you're playing. But being a referee,
game reps.
Yeah, that's right. Even being a referee for people and that trust you, they're still going to give you some of that. So like certainly with people who they don't see all the time, but I mean, I think that Mo is onto something here. It's a relationship issue, but then it's something that I always go back to when I talk about flow of the game stuff with referees, and especially with these non-basketball plays that we all know are not actually attempts at shots or things of that nature. If we would trust these people who are also basketball people, referees are basketball people. They've been in the sport their whole lives. You don't just wake up one day and become an NBA referee. It takes years and years of training and years of basketball experience. And the referees I know love the game too. Maybe we should let these people rely on their judgment a little bit and talk to the players and work things out so that we get a better product. I just want to be able to sit at home and not think about these guys being on the court.
Yeah. So at a lot, I mean, to that point, it's funny. Like I sometimes I go back, look at like rosters of all old college teams, and I'd like to see who came out of the SEC or something like that. And you'll see a name, and it's like, oh man, that guy's been a ref for 10 years, and it was a guy who's on Alabama or something. So it's like these are guys like, okay, if you're good enough in basketball to be on a high major team, you're obviously like a basketball junkie, and probably, as you say, someone whose knowledge and instinct for the game should be trusted a little bit. And that's just, I think that, again, that gets back to the point. I think the refs probably could do those things if that was the mandate they're being given, but instead of trying to satisfy this like spreadsheet version of, well, we got 7 missed calls against us and they only got 3, therefore blah blah blah, which is what a lot of kind of almost the accountancy of ref evaluation has become. That it puts them in a situation where we're chasing reffing metrics instead of well managed from an officiating standpoint games.
Well, I have a couple of points. One, the refs, like, let's just be clear too. The refs have not been good this year in the NBA.
No.
It's been atrocious with some of the missed calls and things like that. We're not saying they've been great and all that stuff with all that. That's not at all where we're going with that. But the other thing too, for all those that do want to complain about refs, go ref your local Y. Okay, and do that for a month, and then report back. Like, do that in that sense. And I think the other thing, to Seth's last point about the metric side of it, yeah, like the numbers of fouls called and whatnot and things like that shouldn't be the metric. It is their job is to manage the game and keep the game flowing in that, Yeah, did he make contact? Sure. Did it really mess up his shot? No. Okay, we don't need to call that foul. Like, whatever it is, the judgments that they need to make with all of that stuff. I feel like and you guys have all said it already, our strive for perfection and get the perfect call and get it right every time is really what's holding us back. And I think that's the thing we got to look at is I just want a well-managed game, because I'm with you, Dave. I don't want any more reviews. I'm done with it. Over. Coach's challenge, gone, ruining the flow of the game with all of those things. And I think the officials do need to get better, and they need to work, and they work their butts off, and they need to find a way to improve it. I think the NBA has to provide more transparency into the issue. The problem with Ben Taylor, and then he's been soft demoted or very quietly demoted. Might need to make these things more public.
Yeah,
maybe. If I mean, what was the official we had earlier who had that run in with the Spencer Dinwiddie? Told his teammate that Spencer Dinwiddie was a bitch ass motherfucker.
Was it Tony Brothers?
Tony Brothers, thank you.
That's it. Yeah.
It's like, what? Like,
Right.
it's like, you know what I mean? Like, you're sorry. Like that should be something the league needs to make a statement.
Yeah.
And suspend him and make it public in that sense. And I think that's some of the stuff the players want as well. And I think that's fair in terms of the transparency, because if they said that to him, tossed and, probably fined, so I think there needs to be a little bit more from the NBA side too, in terms of bringing in a little bit of I don't want to say a hammer, but being a little bit tougher on the refs in that sense, because their job is also to keep the game flowing. And I think everybody needs to get their shit together.
Again, guys, I stand by my statement that I've now made successive seasons. If you swapped NBA referees and professional wrestling referees, we might wind up with a better product on both hands.